Welcome back to another episode of The Real Deal, and today is the day we honor Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Most people get the day off with pay. It's considered a federal holiday in the United States, and it's a good thing. Now, Martin Luther King Jr. was not perfect. He was just a regular human being like the rest of us, somewhat worse than a lot of people. He had a lifetime of infidelity. There was a lot of bad things. I don't want to get into the bad things, though, about MLK. Because all the bad things he might have done, he gave his life fighting for equality and integration. And he tried to get equality. I don't think that'll ever happen. But he gave his life for a cause that he believed in. So I skip all the BS about him. I skip all the bad stuff. Most people should. He's not perfect. If I was to judge him by his infidelities and some of his actions, well, I'm going to be judging a lot of people by those actions too. Because there's a lot of people out there that have done a lot of bad things. And trust me, there's dirt on everybody. Except for me. I'm clean as Teflon, man. Everything slides and rolls right off. But MLK gave his life. He knew what was going to happen. They hassled him for years. He was on the scene for a long time. He died in 1968, April 4th, down at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee. And up until that time, he'd been involved in the civil rights movement for years, man. And he'd been around. I mean, there was that time he got stabbed by that lady up in Harlem. That was 1958, I think it was. And he was at a book signing, and this lady just walked up and said, "Are you Martin Luther King?" He said, "Yes, I am." And she stabbed him with a letter opener. Came close to killing him. It was like an inch from his aorta. The weird thing is, she had a pistol tucked into her bra. Now, why did she use that? I mean, if she really wanted to get him, I'm not saying she should have, but I'm like, it was kind of crazy. But then again, they diagnosed her as a paranoid schizophrenic and a crazy woman, but we don't know for sure because nobody ever really got to talk to her about this. So it could have been a lot of different reasons. We don't know. Now, a lot of problems happened back then. You had a lot of people, they talked a good game about civil rights and what they called Negro equality, but that's all it was talk. They never took any action. They didn't do anything. And King wasn't alone on this. There were a lot of people out there that gave their lives, a lot of people that sacrificed, a lot of people that took a bunch of butt whoopings and all kinds of bad stuff going on back then because there was racism. And it wasn't just down in the South, people. It was in the North also. It was all over the country, and it's still there today. It's just more low-key. You know, they don't have the signs and stuff anymore. But it's still out there, and sadly, racism will always be around until people learn to wake up. And like King said, you don't judge a man by the color of his skin any more than you judge him by the color of his eyes. Now, in November of 1964, well, let's just say this. November 21st of 1964, the FBI had called him the most notorious liar in America. That's a fact. And they also called him, at one time, the most dangerous Negro to the future of this nation. That was 1963. That was after he gave his I Have a Dream speech. He was known as the most notorious, most dangerous Negro to the future of this nation. Now, I'm sure they called him another N-word there, but still, that's what the FBI said. Now, in November of 1964, November 21st, he got a package in the mail to his house, and it was an anonymous package. But most people think it was the FBI. There's actually, years later, some people actually infiltrated some stuff from the FBI. And one of the things was a copy of this letter. You can go read the letter. It's online. It's a threatening letter. It's a hurtful letter. It's a very bad letter. But basically, it was a tape of some of his infidelities, some of his... The FBI had him tagged good, man. They got so much stuff on him, man. He was cheating a lot. He was involved with orgies with a lot of people. There was a lot of crazy stuff that went on with him. But that was one of the little audio tapes they sent him. And they were blackmailing him, basically. And nobody knows what they wanted him to do. Now, when he got this in 1964, it was before he was to accept the Nobel Peace Prize. If you read the letter, you'll understand a little more. But they wanted him to basically not accept the prize or quit what he was doing. They said, you know what you need to do. You got 34 days to do it. Or commit suicide. You know? They were threatening him. I'm sure he got letters all the time, but this was a very professional letter. You could see the envelope it came in and everything. They saved this stuff. And like I said, years down the road, the FBI was like, whoops, we lost these things. How'd you guys get those? And they found out about it. But anyway, I'm going to focus more today on the murder, the assassination, whatever you want to call it, of Martin Luther King Jr. Now, it was at the Lorraine Motel, April 4th, 1968. And he was talking to a band guy down on the ground. He was up on the second floor on the balcony. And he was talking to this band guy down there about they were having a meeting that night. And there's going to be a lot of people there and about what song to play. And that was his last words. Bullet came out of nowhere. And it's kind of messed up, the situation. One of the people that responded to him first, that was one of his group, I can't remember his name exactly off the top of my head. I probably should have researched it. But he came, he ran and got a towel, and he was trying to save him and everything. Turns out that guy was an undercover officer, and that guy ended up working a couple years later for the CIA where he retired. Now, how did he infiltrate that group so much? How did he get in there? I mean, you got to be good at what you're doing to get that far up there. Because King was very, very private. You know, he knew people were trying to kill him and stuff. So he surrounded himself by only the people he trusted the most. Although he had Jesse Jackson there, so I guess he didn't see that one coming. Jesse Jackson's a bum. He's a schlub. I can't stand that guy. He doesn't do anything but divide people for money. But anyway, Dr. King got shot that night. And immediately they pointed to the motel over there. It was a boarding house, not a motel. They call it a boarding house. I call it a flop house. That's what we used to call them back in the day. You rent rooms. There's like 10 rooms in there. You're sharing the bathroom. You're flopping there. It's not a fancy place. Now, after the shooting, the police came, and they tried to save him. He died in the hospital that evening. And right away, they put out on the lookout, to be on the lookout for a guy in a 1966 white Ford Mustang. James Earl Ray was down at the gas station filling up with gas, and he heard that on his radio when he got in there. He's like, whoa, wait a minute, that's me. James Earl Ray was the person they were looking for. He was the one they said was the assassin. He had booked a room in there, and he had left. But we're going to get into this. It's a real sketchy scene. They went over there, and they found all this nice and neatly bundled stuff up. James Earl Ray documents, maps. It was all belonged to James Earl Ray, letters with his name on it, and the gun. All in a nice, neat bundle in front of this little store there. And supposedly he drove off. Now, what he ended up doing was driving to Alabama, Mobile, Alabama. He drove to a few other places, and then he took a plane up to Detroit, took a jet up to Detroit, drove into Windsor, and he flew over to Europe. He wanted to go to, well, it was Rhodesia then, it's Zimbabwe now, and he wanted to be a mercenary. That was what he was telling people. He had so many different names, so many fake IDs, so many fake passports. You can't do that now. I mean, you can, but not the passport. That's a tough one. Fake IDs, not so tough. But a passport, that's a hard one to get through now, especially in the electronic age. But eventually they caught him in London. They caught him over there in England, shipped him back here, and he pled guilty. Said he didn't do it, but he pled guilty. And and he waived his rights to the jury trial because that way he would have been electrocuted if they found him guilty there. So he got 99 years in prison. So then he recanted and said, no, I didn't do it. I want a jury trial. And they said, no, too bad. And so he went to prison. He did escape prison with a bunch of other guys one time. And he got away for about, not too long, but they caught him and they added another year to his sentence. Case closed, right? Wrong. Wrong, everybody. Because if you think James Earl Ray did that all on his own, let me ask you something. James Earl Ray, a two-bit hood. James Earl Ray came from Illinois. His family left that state because his daddy wrote a big bad check, so they moved down south. His whole family was a bunch of lowbrow crooks. James Earl Ray was all over this country doing some stupid stuff, always hustling. Was going to jail for this, that, and the other. He robbed a bank, got $100 or something like that. He robbed a place in Mexico. He got caught a lot. He did a lot of prison time. And then there was a while he was down in Mexico and he was trying to get into the movie industry. He was making movies, pornos basically, with prostitutes and stuff. But that didn't go over too well for him. And the one girl he was dating, well, that didn't work out too well. And we don't know the real truth on this. I'm sure he got ran out of Mexico for doing a lot of stupid stuff. The guy was a lowbrow hood. He didn't succeed anywhere he goes. But hey, he rented a room at this hotel, right? He had no political affiliation. He was not a member of any political party. He did like Governor George Wallace, who was a segregationist. We all know that. Wallace was a racist. But does that mean he's going to kill King? So anyway, let's hear the story. He got up there with this shotgun in a bathroom, standing on a rickety old bathtub. You know them old bathtubs with the claws? You know, they didn't come on the floor. The claw kept it up there. You know what I'm talking about? Them big old cast iron ones with the metal claws on the floor that held the tub up. He got on that, and I guarantee you this was not a very nice place. So I'm sure that tub was nasty, and I'm sure it rattled around. Popped open a window, fired one shot off of a rickety tub, and he got a perfect hit on one person. One shot. Perfect hit. And then he ran down the stairs. He's on the second floor now, people. Nobody heard the shot. Weird. Nobody went to check on anything. Weird. Because the place was full. There were a lot of old drunks up there. And he ran down the stairs, left all his stuff, his possessions, in a nice, neat little bundle, and then took off in his brand new car. That's what the government wants you to believe, people. Do you believe that? Because I sure never did. I sure don't believe it to this day. I'm like, okay, why did he leave his stuff down there? First of all, if he got that shot off on that bathtub with that big rifle, I believe it was a 30-06. I mean, that's got a lot of kick to it. I don't know if you ever fired one of those, but you got to hold that steady. Got a perfect shot. No, I don't believe that for a minute. I also don't believe that anybody would be dumb enough to go down and say, hey, here's all my possessions. They said he did it because he wanted the world to know he was such a great assassin and did all this stuff. I'm like, really? Really? You want us to believe all this stuff, man? But they do. They put it out there. It was him. Case closed. He's going to prison. We're supposed to believe all that, right? So let me ask you something. James Earl Ray traveled all over the country. And somehow he always managed to come up with some money for stuff. So you're telling me he wasn't financed a little bit? Somebody had to be helping him. If he did shoot King, somebody had to be there with him. Somebody had to help him. Somebody had to finance him. Because in 1967, a year before he killed King, he was in, I forget where he was at. But he bought it was August of 67. He bought a 66 Ford Mustang. He bought a year-old Mustang for $2,000 cash. Cash money, okay? And he used a fake name to buy it. He was always using fake names. Okay, now $2,000 cash back then was a lot of money. That's worth $19,500 today, approximately, give or take a little bit. That's a lot of freaking money to have cash money on you, don't you think? How many of y'all listening to this got 20 grand in the bank? Okay. Where'd he get that money? Who gave him that money? He didn't rob it. There was no reports of him ever robbing, being a successful robber and getting like 20 grand or more from a bank or something. Where'd he get that money? Who gave him that money? Who financed this guy? He didn't act alone on any of this stuff. I believe he was involved in it. I believe he was, like, I will be honest with you, Lee Harvey Oswald. He was just a patsy. I believe James Earl Ray was involved. I believe he knows a little bit, but he didn't do it. He didn't do it. I believe they set him up. He didn't do it, man. And it's ridiculous. The government makes us think this and stuff. Now, King's son and then Coretta Scott King, his wife, they went and met with him when James Earl Ray was in prison. James Earl Ray fought for years to get another trial. He said, I never got jurisdiction. He had to let go of his lawyer because the lawyer didn't care. It was horrible. He never got another trial. I mean, this was a major assassination. Wouldn't you bring this to light, people? Wouldn't you say, you know what? They didn't do a good job on this. Let's check this out. Let's look at some stuff. Because he told a story about a guy named Raul. And he was running guns for this guy. And this guy was a gun runner. He was a Cuban, a blonde-haired Cuban guy. Obviously, he dyed his hair blonde, trying to fit in. And at this time, there was a lot of things going on with Cuba and America. And so he was talking about this guy. He told a story all about it. But they didn't care. Oh, he's just making that up to get out of it. I mean, he's already in prison. What's he got to lose, right? He's going to die in prison. What's he got to lose? Tell the truth. Why do you think they killed Oswald? Because he would have told the truth. So Coretta Scott King and King's oldest son, they met with him. And he said, I did not kill your father. He told him a story. He told them who actually killed him. He told them a lot of stuff. He told them about the team they had assembled. And he was just a patsy. He looked Coretta Scott King in the eye and said, I did not shoot your husband. I did not kill him. And she said, I believe you. And I believe him too. Now, he named all these people. And so other people, not the government, of course, other people, they started investigating. And there was this guy named Loyd Jowes, or I don't know how to say his name, Jowes. But anyway, he came out in 1994, and he started talking about that he was involved. He named names, and he got a lot of money because he had his restaurant there. His restaurant was right by the Motel Lorraine, and he started naming names. And he talked about teams. Now, he hadn't met James Earl Ray. He said James Earl Ray was just a setup, was just a patsy used by these other people in charge. He mentioned the mafia was involved, the FBI was involved, and local law enforcement was involved. So, of course, nobody believed the guy. He went and he tried to go to court about it. They even tried to prosecute him at one time for it. But when he went in there and started talking about all this stuff, nobody listened. Nobody cared. And they're like, he's a crazy old man just trying to get some attention, you know. They went and interviewed witnesses. These couple of women were there, and they're like, oh, yeah, he was at the restaurant that day. Yeah, this, that, and the other. They verified his stories. But then they backed off. Surprise, surprise. Then they backed off and said, oh, no. He's just saying this for money. He didn't do this. He didn't do that. And his trial pretty much, they said he was just trying to make money to sell it for a book or a movie or anything. And it was just, they were just coming up with all kinds of things. Anybody that testified was like a nut job, just trying to hustle and stuff. They said the trial relied heavily on second and third hand accounts. And the judge and the jurors were actually seen dozing off during the testimony. And there was an assistant DA there. His last name was Campbell. He was part of the criminal trial against James Earl Ray. And he came out and said, well, I'm not surprised by the verdict, because they found the guy not guilty. And he even said that case overlooked so much contradictory evidence that never was presented. What other option did they have but to accept the account? So they said he didn't do it. He did nothing. He had nothing to do with it, even though he named the shooter. Now, he named the shooter, and you can't find out much about this guy. Trust me, I've looked. Lieutenant Earl Clark was named as the shooter. There was a team, but the first shot was successful. Now, many people feel that that shot didn't come from the flophouse bathroom, that it came from the wooded area with all these little trees and brush down below on the first floor behind the flophouse. And if you measure the angles and if you look really good, that works out. And there was smoke. There's pictures where there's smoke coming out of the bushes. People were pointing at the bushes, not just the flophouse. They knew it came from there, but they were pointing at the bushes. And the very next day, the Memphis Department of Public Works went and removed all those bushes and shrubs and everything there and cleaned it up so there would be no evidence. Oh, I'm sorry. They just did that not for the evidence or anything. They just did that because it was the right thing to do to help people investigating look a little better. They won't let you go in that area. If you've ever been down there to the museum and stuff, they won't let you go on that lawn. They won't let you go in that area to measure anything. That's illegal. You'll go to jail for that. So I've been down to the Lorraine Motel. I've been down there, and I talked to some people that were actually there that day. I talked to people that were like in the neighborhood. You'll talk to their kids who reflect the stories. I saw an old woman there. She was selling books and stuff. And, you know, we don't know how true her story was, but she had some things to say. She talked about the gunshot, talked about how people saw smoke on the ground, that it didn't come from the window, just like I believe. I believe that that cop probably was the one that pulled the trigger. And there was a whole special team of people for that because they didn't want King to keep going. They didn't want him. They didn't want civil rights, even though it had already been signed. LBJ, he didn't want to sign that bill. I've said this a ton of times. When he signed it, he told his people, you get me elected president and I'll have those N-words voting Democrat for the next 200 years. That's all they do is toss a little bit out to the black man and say, vote for us, here's $1, and they hope they're dumb enough to do it. Well, black people, listen up. Don't be dumb enough to do that anymore. Rise up. Because Democrats have never cared about you. They didn't care about you then. They don't care about you now. I'll get back to my story. So I've been down there to the hotel and everything. I looked around. I've searched everything. I've checked out. I've taken pictures. And like I said, they won't let you on that little area back there. So I know some of y'all might know me. Some of you don't. I'll talk to anybody and everybody. I'm also a good listener. And I talked to a woman. I shouldn't say a whole lot because I don't know if she still works there or not, but I don't want her to get in trouble for this. But we talked. She worked for them. She worked for the museum. I asked her what her thoughts were. Told her what my thoughts were. And she totally agreed with me. She's like, and I said, man, I wish I could get back there and measure that stuff. And I said, I've got some theories. The only way I can prove it is to get back there. And she said, that's not allowed. There's signs there and everything. I said, I know. It's okay. And then she turned her head and said, but I didn't see nothing. And I was like, oh, man. So I went back there. I took a ton of pictures. I took pictures from the angles. I measured everything. I measured the footage to there. I know how fast an .6 will go. I know the angle it'll go on. And let me tell you, people, from where the bushes were, from the back of that building on the first floor, that's a perfect shot. A perfect freaking shot. And I am grateful, so grateful that she let me do that because it proved my theory. I've been down to where JFK was killed, Dealey Plaza. I've been to a lot of places where people were killed because I want to tell the truth because I don't believe the government and their lies. I don't believe them. I've got my theories. If I'm wrong, I'll admit it. I wasn't wrong on this, people. I was not wrong. So I walked and I told her, I said, thank you so much. We're right. She goes, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, I love you, man. She just smiled and I left. I appreciate that so much with her. That was so awesome. Because back then, just like now, the government doesn't care. The government doesn't tell the truth. Here's how they felt about civil rights back then. All right, when they were integrating the schools, these little black girls were going, and these were young girls, 13, 14, 15-year-old girls going into an all-white school for the first time. There are people out there threatening them. There are people with guns. They want to kill them. They want to beat these girls up. And these girls, I give them so much credit because they got hassled. And they were like trying to just get a good education. And so they're walking into the schools and there's people threatening them. It was horrible. And so the black groups called for JFK. Can you bring the National Guard down to protect us? How about you protect these young women? No, I can't do that. That's illegal. I'm not allowed to do that. No. Good luck with that. Ooh, somebody other than my wife to look at. Hold on, I got to go do this chick. And then here's what happened. You would have black folks peacefully protesting, peacefully marching, Selma, Alabama, Memphis, Tennessee, Gulfport, Mississippi, all over the South, peacefully, just holding signs. Jackson, Mississippi, just walking down the street holding a sign saying they want equality. Not too much to ask. What did Kennedy do? Send the National Guard in. They're keeping up with the First Amendment, so they're peacefully protesting. Get a couple FBI guys in there to make it look bad, okay? Because that's what they do. They send their people in to get things going. And that's what they do. They've done that forever, man, and they're doing it now. So it's okay to send the National Guard in for a peaceful protest. But when little girls are getting threatened and, harassed and could get killed, then you don't do that. Freaking Kennedys, man. I never liked those bums. I never will. So there's always been conflict and contradiction with the assassination of Martin Luther King. So King's family did whatever they could. They tried to get things going on. They tried to get another investigation, another trial. They just want to know the truth, and I don't blame them. They know he wasn't killed by James Earl Ray. So King's family accepted some of these so-called conspiracy theories. And here's the deal with conspiracy theories. I can name 100 of them right now, but I won't because it'll take too long, that they call conspiracy theories that have all been proven, including my own people. But back in 97, they got to the government. Bill Clinton was in there. I'm just like Kennedy, only I've got a southern accent because I don't care about the Negroes either. I don't care about anybody but myself. Hey, there's somebody other than Hillary I can go nail. He's a bum too. And he's on the Epstein list, by the way. More ways than one. So Janet Reno, who's a horrible attorney general. Ooh, she was awful. Ooh, she did so many bad things, man. Don't forget Waco. Anyway, and Elian Gonzalez. Reno was a horrible piece of, yeah. So anyway, she ordered a new investigation on August 26th of 1998. And, they're just going through the formalities. They didn't care. So the Justice Department, and a couple years later, they put a 150-page report out rejecting any allegations and any conspiracies that says there was no conspiracy to assassinate King, including the findings of the Memphis Civil Court jury. They said the DOJ considered suggestions by the U.S. House Select Committee on Assassinations in 1979, and the district attorney of Shelby County, where Memphis is, in 1998. Ray's brothers might have been co-conspirators. They weren't. They had nothing to do with it. And then they said they found insufficient evidentiary leads remaining after 30 years to justify further investigation. Case closed, everybody. James Earl Ray did it. The government had nothing to do with it. Don't you blame us again, or you'll all go to jail, or you'll get, Arkansided by Hillary. Got to watch what you say there. Yeah. Insufficient evidence. Nothing. Nope. 30 years later, nothing. Now, here's the kicker. They close the files up. And they usually do this, wait to release the files till after they're dead, till after everybody involved is dead, so you can't say or do anything to them, But do you really think the FBI keeps files that could incriminate people? I mean, they could incriminate other people where they can, like, get something for it. You know what I mean? But do you really think they're going to get files to say, hey, yeah, we did this? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to get rid of that file. They don't want you to know the truth, people. The only way you're going to come find the truth is me and a few others like me, man. But in 2027, next year, supposedly, they're supposed to open up and release all the files. Now, how much you want to bet? One of two things happen. Number one, the files will be redacted. Number two, they'll release them redacted, or they'll wait. They'll delay it. That's what's going to happen. They're either not going to release them at all and wait, or they're going to release the files. Half the stuff's not going to be there, and most of it's going to be redacted. That's how they cover their butts, people. Let me just say, James Earl Ray did not shoot King. King was not perfect, but he fought for freedom. He fought for freedom and equality. He gave his life. He spoke out for others. And we live in a selfish world now where people won't do that. You got people that go out there and they'll hold a sign up. They wouldn't do half the things he did. They couldn't deal with half. That man got his butt whooped so many times, got thrown in jail just for being a black man on the public streets holding a sign. They made stuff up. That man went through hell for his people. And not just his people, but many others. He had the support of great communities. A lot of people supported him. Yes, he wasn't perfect. He did bad things with his life and his family. He hurt people. But you know what? The good he did outweighs the bad. And he never should have gone through this fate. He should have lived to see America get a little more integrated. We still got a long way to go, people. There's still bigotry, racism, prejudice, redlining. I mean, that still goes on. They keep the rents high in certain areas, to keep certain individuals out, not to keep the poor out. I guess they don't want them in there either, but to keep the blacks out, to keep the minorities out. And then they'll sit there and say, Black Lives Matter. Where? Not in your town. You got none, So these are the big hypocrites, man. These are the ones that say they stuck up for King, but they never would have backed him. They never would have been there. The first sign of police, they would have ran. And if they got arrested, they would have glorified it and made a big deal. Oh, I got arrested. I'm somebody now. I'm a great person. That's how they do it. They don't fight for others. They're just fighting to make themselves look good. Me, I fight for others. I make you aware of this situation. I want people to wake up. I've got your backs, America, and the rest of the world. I want you all to know the truth out there. Don't believe the lies, people. Just believe the truth. And that's what you're going to get from me and many others out there. But you're going to hear several different stories and it'll get twisted around. But I'm going to tell you straight up, I'm the real deal. And I come at you like I feel. I tell you the truth, baby. Peace.